Have you ever sat in the quiet of your own being, in those rare moments between the relentless demands of the world, and felt a profound, unsettling question bubble up from the very depths of your soul? It doesn't arrive with a thunderclap, but as a subtle, persistent whisper, a frequency just beneath the surface of your daily thoughts. It asks, are the thoughts that echo within the sacred chambers of my mind truly mine? Are the opinions I defend so passionately, the desires that drive my actions, the fears that limit my potential, are they born of my own unique essence? Or are they merely echoes of a world that has been screaming at me since the day I was born? A complex symphony of parental expectations, educational programming, and cultural conditioning. If this question has ever haunted the edges of your awareness, if it has ever made you feel like a stranger in your own mind, then know this with every fiber of your being: you are not going mad. You are, in fact, waking up. This feeling is not a symptom of illness, but the first glorious, terrifying tremor of a monumental spiritual awakening. It is a sign that your higher self, the eternal, sovereign part of you, is finally making its voice heard. It is calling you to reclaim the most sacred territory you will ever possess, the sovereign territory of your own consciousness. This journey inward can feel intensely isolating, as if you are the only one who sees the invisible walls of the prison. But you are not alone. Across the globe, thousands, millions, are feeling this same divine pull, this sacred discontent. If these words resonate with the deepest part of you, if they feel like a truth you've always known but couldn't articulate, let your energy be felt in this digital space. Acknowledge this profound connection with a simple gesture, and in doing so, join a tribe of souls who are remembering their power. Share your own moments of awakening in the comments below, perhaps with a simple "I resonate," and let us together create a powerful beacon of light for others who are just beginning to see through the veil. This is more than a message, it is an activation. Understand this profound and vital truth. The most potent and dangerous form of control isn't the kind that puts your body in a physical prison with bars of steel. That form of control is obvious, and because it is obvious, it can be resisted. No, the most insidious form of captivity, the one that has ensnared humanity for millennia, is the one that builds a cage around your very spirit. Its bars are not made of iron, but of accepted opinions, unchallenged beliefs, and borrowed truths. This spiritual enslavement is a legacy, an inheritance passed down through generations, so deeply woven into the fabric of society that we mistake its confines for the horizon. It is a prison without visible walls, a slavery so complete that the enslaved will often fiercely defend their own chains, believing them to be precious ornaments of identity and belonging. You were told, from your earliest days, that you possessed freedom of thought, that this was your divine birthright in a free world. But were you ever truly taught how to wield this sacred power? Were you shown how to discern the clear, high frequency of your own inner truth from the deafening, chaotic static of external manipulation? Or were you simply handed a pre-approved menu of thoughts, beliefs, and aspirations and told to choose, never realizing you are a diner in a restaurant where every dish has been pre-selected to nourish the system, not your soul? The freedom you were promised had already been sold to the highest bidder, traded for your compliance, your passivity, and your quiet obedience. Long before you even knew how to formulate the question to challenge the transaction. Remember this: the most powerful chains are not forged from metal, but from the ideas we accept without question, the narratives we absorb unconsciously, and the limitations we mistake for reality. These are the energetic chains that have kept your divine essence in a state of slumber, the subtle programming that dictates your desires, your fears, and your very perception of what is possible. They are not waiting for a key from the outside. They are waiting for the moment you would finally begin to pull at them from within, to test their strength against the burgeoning power of your own awareness, and to remember, with a jolt that shakes your entire being, that you were born to be unbound. This pervasive illusion is maintained and strengthened through a constant, overwhelming deluge of noise. In a world that glorifies information overload, a world that bombards your senses from the moment your alarm clock shrieks you into consciousness to the moment you numb yourself to sleep with the blue light of a screen, what we call thinking has been degraded into something else entirely. It's often just a knee-jerk reaction, an emotional spasm in response to a stimulus you never consciously chose to receive. Your very nervous system is being played like a delicate instrument by unseen hands, tuned to a frequency of perpetual anxiety, outrage, and want. Think about it. The endless scroll on social media, the relentless cycle of breaking news alerts, the manufactured outrages that flare up and die down with predictable regularity. They are not designed to inform you. They are designed to entrain you. They are engineered to capture your most precious resource, your attention, and to manipulate your emotional state, keeping your mind so chaotically occupied with the trivial and the terrifying that you never have a moment of silence to hear the one voice that truly matters, the calm, clear, unwavering voice of your own soul. This isn't just a harmless distraction, it is a sophisticated form of spiritual disarmament. It systematically weakens your spiritual immune system, making you susceptible to any passing thought virus that happens to be circulating in the collective consciousness. Every shallow argument you're pulled into online, every viral trend that hijacks your focus for a day, every manufactured crisis that demands your emotional energy and outrage, it chips away at your inner clarity. It erodes your peace of mind, and it systematically disconnects you from the source of your true power. You are being masterfully conditioned to confuse stimulation with awareness, to mistake reaction for wisdom, to believe that having a strong opinion is the same as having a deep understanding. The system doesn't need to attack your mind directly with force. It simply distracts it, overstimulates it, and trains it to fear and avoid the deep, nourishing quiet of profound reflection. Because in that sacred quiet lies the seed of all true revolution, a personal revolution of consciousness. This deep and pervasive conditioning begins the moment you enter their institutions, long before you can form your own conscious defenses. The modern education system, for all its purported goals of enlightenment and empowerment, is rarely a temple of true awakening. It is, more often than not, a meticulously designed assembly line for compliant minds. You were not truly asked to think. You were taught to repeat. You were not encouraged to discover your unique, innate genius. You were trained to conform to a standardized, impersonal measure of worth. You were not guided to embark on the sacred journey to find your own truth. You were instructed to memorize pre-packaged conclusions and regurgitate them on standardized tests, a process that rewards mimicry over originality. It's a system that doesn't cultivate wisdom, it manufactures obedience. It dresses up this obedience and calls it maturity, rewards this conformity and calls it intelligence. The creative, boundless, questioning spirit you were born with, that divine spark of curiosity, is gently, methodically, and relentlessly pruned and shaped until it fits into a neat, predictable, and controllable box. This is how they build the very foundation of the mental prison, brick by unquestioned brick, in the fertile soil of your developing mind. And then, for those who, despite this programming, still dare to question, who feel the persistent stirrings of their soul and ask, why? The system has its powerful second line of defense, the insidious power of the label. The moment you question too deeply, the moment your inquiry threatens the established comfortable order, you are given a name to silence your doubt and invalidate your perception. Irresponsible, rebellious, ungrateful, conspiracy theorist, extremist, unstable. These words are not meant to describe you, they are meant to dismiss you. They are the scarlet letters of the modern age, verbal weapons designed to trigger deep-seated fears of shame and social isolation, to make you retreat back into the perceived safety of the accepted narrative. And so you learn. You learn to suppress the questions. You learn to shrink your wonder. You learn to survive by thinking only within their approved, strictly limited spectrum, and you call that thinking. But deep down, in the silent core of your being, you can feel it, can't you? That quiet discomfort, that inner friction, that subtle but persistent feeling that something is fundamentally, profoundly wrong. It is the sacred ache of a soul remembering its own limitless vastness within a world that constantly demands it stay small. It's the palpable tension between the flat, two-dimensional world you were told exists and the vibrant, multi-dimensional world your soul knows to be true. This feeling of being lost, of not knowing what's real anymore, is not a sign of your failure. It is not a weakness of your intellect. It is the sacred symptom of a mind held hostage, the first powerful cry of a spirit yearning to break free from its invisible chains. It is the undeniable proof that beneath the countless layers of programming and social conditioning, your true self is still alive, still fighting, still remembering. The system doesn't need to physically imprison you if you proudly carry the cage inside your own mind, dutifully policing your own thoughts, censoring your own truth before it ever reaches your lips. They don't need to censor your words if they can first shape the very definitions and conceptual frameworks you use to form them in the first place. They have created a world where you are not chained, but conditioned, not forced, but subtly and relentlessly guided to think inside lines someone else drew for you. You find yourself staring at a life built on a foundation of thoughts that never began with your own clarity. A life animated not by your soul's unique and sacred agenda, but by someone else's. The modern world doesn't truly fear chaos. It thrives on it, manufactures it, and then sells it back to you as entertainment and breaking news. What it truly fears, above all else, is clarity. It doesn't fear raw emotion. It skillfully harvests it for clicks, engagement, and profit. What it fears is true, grounded, sovereign awareness. The brilliant philosopher Michel Foucault once wrote that power in the modern era doesn't just repress, it produces. It actively produces our desires, our identities, our very sense of what is real and what is possible. It organizes our behavior, it conditions our perception, and it installs invisible, internalized norms that guide our every action. In our time, algorithms have become the new high priests, the invisible and unquestioned arbiters of your reality. They curate a personalized feed that is not a window to the world, but a meticulously crafted mirror, reflecting back a carefully constructed, marketable, and predictable version of you. They don't ban the difficult question. They simply flood you with so many easy, pre-approved answers that you forget how to even ask. They don't silence you by overt force. They drown out your subtle inner voice with a deafening tsunami of external noise, keeping you perpetually busy, emotionally exhausted, and constantly performing for validation. This endless stream of outrage, trivia, and dopamine loops is designed to keep your nervous system in a constant state of agitation, because a mind in agitation cannot find its center. A mind that cannot find its center cannot access its own deep wisdom. And a mind without its own wisdom is a mind that can be easily controlled. This is how they took your mind, not with violence, but with volume, until you couldn't hear your own thoughts anymore. And so, every time you scrolled without thinking, you weren't just passing the time, you were actively participating in a ritual of forgetting. You were being conditioned, moment by moment, to devalue your own inner world in favor of an external, manufactured one. It's no accident that your first instinct every morning is to reach for your phone, to plug your consciousness directly into the matrix before you've even had a chance to connect with your own dreams, your own body, your own soul. By doing so, you have already outsourced your awareness before sunrise, allowing the narratives of the day to define your reality before you've even had a chance to define your own sacred intentions. The more outraged you become, the more distracted you are. The more distracted you are, the more predictable your reactions become to those who profit from chaos and confusion. You have been masterfully trained to mistake the intensity of your emotional reaction for the depth of your understanding. You come to believe in official truths, not because you've rigorously and independently examined them, but because they come from a source you've been conditioned to trust without question. From the solemn-faced news anchors to the charismatic online influencers, you unconsciously absorb their tone, mimic their outrage, and carry their opinions like a banner. Believing it's wisdom you earned yourself. You call this being aware, but it's just compliance disguised as intelligence. And you have been rewarded for this performance, praised for it, and validated for it your entire life. It is a subtle but profound form of mental and spiritual dependency. But now, in this moment of clarity, you see the loop. You see the headlines, the hashtags, the endless outrage carousel for what it truly is. A grand, distracting performance you were taught to mistake for your own life and your own self. You realize you've traded your sacred, innate curiosity for the cold, hollow comfort of consensus. You no longer question to understand. You question only to ensure you stay safely inside the social frame that you believe defines safety. You have come to fear being misunderstood more than you fear being mentally enslaved, and that is exactly how the system keeps you tame, predictable, and powerless. You don't seek knowledge. You seek validation. You don't ask, what is real? You ask, what do others already agree with that I can safely repeat? This is the very architecture of your mental prison, and you have been both its unwitting prisoner and its most diligent warden. The great psychoanalyst Erich Fromm warned us decades ago with startling prescience. Modern man is not forced to obey. He chooses submission to feel safe and anonymous in the crowd. You didn't give up your freedom because someone demanded it with a gun to your head. You traded it, piece by piece, for comfort, for security, for the fleeting and fragile illusion of social belonging. That's the insidious genius of the trap. You think you're free because you get to pick from 100 different channels, 1,000 different feeds, 1,000,000 different products. But what if every one of those options was designed by the same unseen hand, intended to lead you down a different path to the very same destination, a place where you are a predictable consumer, a manageable citizen, a passive spectator in your own life? What if true freedom isn't about choosing between the options presented, but about having the clarity to see what and who shaped those options in the first place? Reclaiming your mind isn't about rebellion, it's about recovery. It's about remembering who you were before you were programmed. So, how does this profound recovery begin? Where is the hidden door out of this invisible, self-imposed prison? It begins with a single, radical act: embracing silence. Not just the absence of external sound, but the deliberate cultivation of an absence of mental pollution disguised as relevance. Let your nervous system finally breathe. Let it recalibrate from the frantic frequency of the collective to its own natural divine rhythm. Let your authentic thoughts rise and fall like the tide, without interruption from an external feed. Let your inner voice, that quiet, persistent whisper of your higher self, finally speak into a space that is clear enough for it to be heard, long before the algorithms of the world rush in to fill that space for you. Most people avoid silence, not because it's empty, but precisely because it's so full of the truths they have been running from. In the silence, you are forced to confront the beliefs you have inherited, the narratives you have absorbed, and the persona you have so carefully constructed. Without the constant shield of distraction, you must face the unexamined, shadowy corners of your own consciousness. You must learn to sit with the profound discomfort of not knowing, and embrace the raw vulnerability of true, unfiltered inquiry. This is the sacred ground where real thinking is born. This is the space where you stop being a mere reflection of the world and start being a source of your own unique light. Then, from this newfound stillness, you must start asking the truly dangerous questions. Not the safe, rhetorical questions that reinforce what you already believe, but the kind of questions that make your inherited certainties tremble under the direct light of your focused awareness. Ask yourself, who gave me this belief? Was it a parent, a teacher, a politician, a screen? Whose interest does this belief truly serve? Is it my own, or the interest of a system that benefits from my compliance? What part of me is terrified to let this belief go? What illusion of safety or comfort does it provide me? Is this thought a key that unlocks my potential, or is it another bar reinforcing the walls of my cage? Truth doesn't always survive this kind of rigorous, honest questioning, but real clarity always does. What crumbles when challenged with this level of presence wasn't truly yours to begin with. It was installed. A man who thinks for himself doesn't wait to be understood by the crowd. He waits until the noise of the crowd dies down, and then he sees. He sees the strings. He sees the programming. He sees the subtle, intricate ways his divine energy has been harvested and redirected. And once you see clearly, once you truly perceive the matrix for what it is, you can never go back to sleep. Reclaiming your mind means consciously and deliberately removing your consent from the systems that harvest your focus in exchange for perpetual anxiety. It means turning off the external voices that train your attention to abandon yourself, constantly, for the next fleeting hit of external validation. Independent thinking is not rebellion for the sake of ego. It is the sacred recovery of a mind that no longer needs an external audience to validate its own existence. You don't have to be loud. You don't have to be angry. You simply have to stop performing ideas and emotions that no longer reflect your authentic inner truth. The system can tolerate its critics. It has a designated place for them in the grand performance of dissent. But it cannot tolerate genuine clarity, because clarity doesn't comply, it doesn't seek approval, and it doesn't ask for applause. This profound journey isn't about becoming special or superior. It's about becoming authentic in a world where almost everything has been pre-approved, pre-framed, and pre-sold. You don't need to wear black, quote Nietzsche, or burn your past to the ground. You just need to stop outsourcing your selfhood. When you begin to think clearly and live from that clarity, you will inevitably threaten the roles that others still depend on for their sense of self. And that is why they might resist your newfound stillness. People may accuse you of changing, of becoming cold, distant, or withdrawn, but in reality, you're just no longer echoing their pre-written script. That's not rebellion. That's healing. That is the quiet miracle that happens when a man no longer trades his inner peace for external permission, or his own deep insight for the fleeting high of popularity. This is how the Great Awakening begins. Not by speaking louder than everyone else, but by learning to think slower, deeper, and more intentionally than you ever have before. You begin not with the goal to win an argument, but with the sacred intention to finally be free. You don't reclaim your mind by adding more thoughts, more data, more opinions from the outside. You reclaim it by bravely removing the layers of noise you've mistaken for thinking. Start by unsubscribing. Unsubscribe from the endless stream of stimulation that has been disguised as information, purpose, or personal growth. Turn off the voices that keep you scrolling, comparing, reacting. Reclaiming your mind starts with the disciplined practice of silence. It is in that stillness that you begin to hear a different signal, the pure, untainted frequency of your own being the part of you that was never programmed. That is what the system, in all its forms, fears most. A man who can watch the chaos of the world without reacting, who can question authority without apologizing, and who can see the truth without flinching. That kind of sight isn't loud, it's final and irrevocable. So, ask yourself, honestly, right now, before this precious moment ends, whose mind have you been living with all this time? You were not born with blind beliefs. You inherited them, absorbed them, and wore them like a second skin until you forgot they were even there. You were not born for this subtle and pervasive mental slavery. You were born to discern, to reflect, and to reclaim the powerful, sovereign voice inside you. And now that you've seen through the grand illusion, what are you finally ready to reclaim? The most revolutionary thing you can do is to just be present. No defense, no explanation, just pure, unwavering presence. Because when you no longer chase the noise, you start to hear the signal. The sacred journey back to your authentic self, to your own sovereign mind, begins with one simple, courageous act: the courage to unplug, to sit in the quiet, and to dare to listen to what remains when the world finally falls away.